Thanks for joining back in for a little bit more of our bonus. We pick up on page 214. Shots fired. Several officers raise their guns. The tranquilizer dart guy takes aim too. No, Maya yells, no guns! Kimu blinks, eyes darting right and left, then leaps off the car with such grace and speed it's like he owns the win. Two shots ring out. Silence follows. Was he hit? Someone asks. Maya closes her eyes. I sure hope not. I sure hope so, someone else says. Jungle. As I watched that leap, watched Kimu fly, I didn't know what to think. Part of me was like, go for it, dude. And the other part of me was thinking, it's a jungle out there. A situation. Officer Williams climbs onto a picnic table. Someone hands her a megaphone so she can be heard over the din. Folks, she yells, listen up. We've got a handful of animal control workers coming over, but several roads are already flooded out, and the weather guys are saying Gus is going to take his sweet time. Meantime, park supervisors, call in more help, but only if your workers can get here safely. The unmistakable roar of a big cat rolls over us like slow thunder. Any more trank guns? Officer William asks the park director, who's just arrived. 3 in reserve, she answers. Nets? We have a dozen. Okay then. Officer Williams' radio crackles. I can hear more shouting, more barking dogs. Shelter's flooding, she says. Yeah, that's happened there before, the director says. Usually just a foot or two of water. Okay, public safety is where we start. Officer Williams wipes rain from her forehead. We need to get the word out that these animals are on the loose. Of course, says the director. We have protocols in place, but we need to be careful how we word this. People might overreact. Ma'am, a firefighter interrupts. I see a python in my backyard. Ma'am, a firefighter interrupts. I see a python in my backyard. I'm sure as heck gonna overreact. First things first, says Officer Williams. Triage in the main office. Check wreckage for any survivors, human or animal. Fan out with trank guns. Get an inventory on how many animals are loose. I wonder how it's possible that Officer Williams can seem so composed. The air reeks with fear from animals, birds, people, from me, and yet she doesn't seem worried about herself, just other people. Weird the way some humans stick their necks out for others. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, does it? Again, the crackle, the hiss, the barking. My ears perk up for a minute. Was that a familiar voice? Maybe someone I know is in the slammer. I'm going to the shelter at the elementary school, Sarah says. Her hands are trembling, but her voice is firm. To look for George and Julia, just in case. She strokes my head, and I'm happy to let her. I wonder if I should tag along with her, see if I can help out. Now that I know Ivan and Ruth are safe. Hiss, crackle, meow, bark. I hear it again. My ears go on alert. My body goes rigid. No, it's impossible. Never. Some barks you never forget. One place. I know what I have to do. Despite the turmoil all around me, the noises, the smells, the fear, the confused humans, the frantic animals, despite my worry about Julia and George, I know there's one place I need to be. This one's called A Split Second. I want to tell Ivan and Ruby, but Ivan is still being poked at by the rhymes with pet, threat. Although, come to think of it, she doesn't seem like much of a threat. In a movie, she'd be one of the good guys. To my annoyance, Sarah picks me up. I hate being picked up, unless it's my idea, and then it's totally cool. Maya, she says, let me know. First sign of George and Julia, okay? Promise, says Maya, and she places her hand on Sarah's shoulder. Humans, always with the touching, although I kind of get it under the circumstances. You can't take Bob to the school shelter. They're not allowing any more pets, Maya points out, and the animal shelter is flooding, it sounds like. Why don't you leave him here? I'll put him in my office. He'll be safe. No way is that on my agenda. Sarah nods. Good idea. She starts to hand me over, but hesitates when she realizes Maya still has a meerkat wrapped around her neck. It's just a split second, but a split second is all it takes to escape when you're Bob, untamed and undaunted. On my way. Bob, Sarah cries. Grab that dog, Maya yells. I spent a good part of my life running from a certain guy named Mac, and I still have my moves. I twist and spin and dip, and before you can say, yes, sirree, Bob, they've given up. I backtrack, slip under a bench, and make my way to Ruby. Ruby, I whisper, I gotta go. Something important's come up. You and Ivan see if you can find George and Julia. I want to come, Ruby says, stomping her right foot in a huge puddle. You need to keep an eye on Ivan, I say. Make sure Kenyani doesn't drive him loco with her sobbing. I'll be back before you know it. I don't wait for an answer. I'm off into the wild, into the world filled with wind and rain, with wolves and alligators, with a voice that could rip my heart in two. Okay, this is part 3. Looking. Ivan used to ask me what I did when I wasn't hanging out at the Exit 8 Big Top Mall and Video Arcade. I wasn't like the rest of the animals, caged and trapped. I told him I was scrounging for food, and he never questioned it. When you think about it, though, where's a better place to find food than on the roof of a mall at the end of the day? Yeah, I wasn't looking for food. I was looking for her, for Boss. What if? At first, I didn't admit it to myself. You know how it is when you wish for something so bad you're afraid to say it out loud because what if it never happens? It was like that. I knew the odds were crazy long. I knew I was nuts. And yet, I went out day after day searching for her. 6. There'd been 6 of us in the litter, so why was I only looking for her? Because it was her bark I'd heard. After the box landed, even after the truck roared past, I heard it. A whimper, bark, howl, cry, something I've never heard since. She survived, at least, at first. I survived. The rest of them didn't. Relieved. And what did I do when I heard that bark? Did I run toward it? Did I try to find her, to save her? No. I was just a few weeks old, helpless, useless. The cries stopped almost as soon as they'd started. And you know what? Part of me was relieved. I didn't have to go back onto the highway. I couldn't bear wanting to rescue her and not knowing how. I didn't want to see her die, but mostly I was afraid. Coward. I was afraid. A coward. There is a certain freedom that comes with owning your faults. The wind. Every day I went looking for Boss, up and down the same barren stretch of highway. Sometimes I'd catch a hint of something hopeful on the air and think that it was my sister's scent. I'd be certain the breeze had brought me her voice like an invisible gift. The wind can really mess with your head. Enough. After a while, I stopped going to the highway, stopped looking. It was a relief to give up. I had enough to worry about. My paddles. As I run from the park, I keep hearing my sister's yelp in my head. But still, with every step, my doubts grow. Sometimes we hear what we want to hear. The animal shelter is close, just down the street, but there's nothing quick about the trip. Water rushes past like a raging river. The sun's been swallowed by black clouds. I pick my way through muddy front yards, avoiding the worst of the water. I ain't much of a swimmer. Doesn't come up much in my line of work, though I do a passable dog paddle. The problem is my paddles. My paws are tiny. Not much to work with when you're fighting a flood. I see a couple humans with flashlights carving tunnels in the sheeting rain, but mostly the streets seem eerily abandoned, especially after the chaos of the park. The shelter is at the bottom of a slight hill. Rain's pooled outside the front door despite a pile of sodden sandbags. A police car is out front, parked at an odd angle. I find some footing on a large rock near the door. Takes me 3 slippery tries, but I manage to leap onto the topmost sandbag. I bark with all I've got, but I might as well be voiceless between the wind and the rain and the howling animals begging for escape. Inside. I pause to listen. I hear humans shouting, and I can make out what sounds like police radio chatter, but I don't hear Boss. I'm right here, right at the source. Nothing. It wasn't her bark I heard. She's dead, and I'm crazy and hearing things and drenched and shivering. And where is Julia? Where is George? Hey, little guy. The door eases open just a crack. Every bone in my body, every smart part of my doggy brain says, run! This is an animal shelter, a flooding one apparently. My sister isn't here, and I still have to find George and Julia. The door moves. Swoop! The loop comes down around my neck as fast, so fast that for a moment I don't know what it is. It's like a cowboy's lasso, the kind in old Western movies I used to watch with Ivan. But this lasso is at the end of a long metal handle, and at the end of the long metal handle is a man. Stay calm, buddy. The man eases me gently but firmly off the sandbags and through the door. I'm inside the Bow Wow big house. The hound pound. The pet Pokey. Oops. The return of Snickers. The man pulls me along with his lasso. I decide not to argue. We enter a small room stacked with animal-filled metal cages, and I'm assaulted by howls and hisses. The cold water on the floor sloshes as we walk, just skimming my belly. As bad as my smeller is, I instantly pick up on one distinctive odor. It's like the world's worst perfume. The kind old ladies emit, the kind people spray on their dogs to camouflage their lovely dog stink. The kind Snickers wears. I catch a glimpse of her in an upper cage, a draggled bow in her droopy hair. Snick, baby, fancy meeting you here, I say. You look good behind bars. Harebrain, she replies. Hey, calls a rabbit 2 cages down. What's your language? Mac couldn't deal with you? I ask Snickers. He brought me here because he thought it would be safer. Seems he may have been mistaken, I say. Carefully grabbing my scruff, Cowboy lifts me into an upper cage. He pulls the lasso loose and shuts the barred door. I'm not happy, but it's a relief to be out of my noose. Oh, great, another one? Calls a woman wearing tall rubber boots. She pauses in the doorway. I thought we were turning people away. People, yes, says Cowboy, but this pup came solo. TikTok, folks, says an older, ruddy-faced officer. He's holding a radio in one hand and a flashlight in the other. You're running out of time. We hear ya, but first we gotta go move everybody who's lower level. Boots sigh. Last hurricane, we had 2 feet to deal with. I swear they're getting worse. Climate change, says the officer. What are y'all gonna do? More than we're doing, says Boots. That much is for sure. I'll move the dogs from room 2, Cowboy offers. There are only a couple at the bottom level. We're out of cages, though. We'll have to double up. Put that little female in with the new guy, says Boots. They look like twins. I'm shivering, and it's not because I'm cold. I press my hurt nose to the metal bars. I smell something. I do. I hear something. I do. Cowboy returns, dog in arms. A bark. That bark. The door to my cage opens. Hey, I say automatically, even as my heart is already whispering the truth to me. They call me Bob. They call me Boss, says the voice. But by now I know, of course I know, and I'm howling with joy. Alive. Thunder claps, shutters fly, windows rattle, water rushes, dogs whimper, cats howl, people yell, and all I can hear is my sister's voice. And we pause there.